It's September 24th, 2011. I'm Earl Evans, host of the Retrobits Podcast, and today we're at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Looks like they're having a lot of fun in there. Let's go inside and check it out. I'm here with Shawn. Is this for you here at the Retro Gaming Expo?
This is our second year at the Expo, and this year we're a sponsor.
So what sort of things are you selling at your booth?
We've got everything from the pet all the way up to the Commodore 64. We even have Amiga software, cartridges, manuals, everything you need for the Commodore.
Awesome. Now you actually were instrumental in getting some big names here to the event, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, it just happens that I know a guy, David Crane, founder of Activision, wrote Pitfall, and he's coming to the Expo. He's going to be here for interviews and talks. And
thanks for being on.
Thanks, Earl.
It's good to see you as always.
Awesome.
Very honored to have two special speakers here. We have a ex-Working Designs employee here, Chris Tremue. Sitting right by him is also a good friend of mine, Jesse Dreyer. And off to you guys. Thank you.
So my first day at Working Designs, it was January 12th, 2000. I'm 2 feet in the door, and they hit me with the non-disclosure agreement. And I was like, well, can't we at least say hi first? They're like, no, non-disclosure agreement. So I sign it, and I walk back, and there's trophies and wall scrolls and a bunch of geek video gamer stuff that I really wish I had now because it would be worth millions. And it takes me back to my cubicle. And I've actually had the biggest cubicle in the area because I had the server there and my own computer and a huge phone switch system. I start working on my computer. There's maybe 40 megabytes free on this hard drive. Makes it really, really hard to do anything at all, especially when I have to open up Photoshop every 2 seconds to put graphics on the website. People are coming in every now and then, they're saying, hey, who the hell are you? And I'm like, I'm nobody important, I'm just Chris. And I guess it's about 2 hours in, maybe. And Zach Meston, he's in the cubicle next to me, he goes, hey Chris, you can't smoke in here. And I was like, what are you talking about, Zach? I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. And he says, no, you can't smoke in here. There's smoke coming out of your cubicle. And I'm like, what, is this some kind of new Working Designs joke? This isn't hilarious. What are you doing here? And he goes, you know what, damn it. And he comes right over. And he sees that our universal power supply is caught on fire. And I look back, and I'm slightly stunned at this point. I look back and I'm just kind of like, like so it is. So it hadn't really sunk in that I had a fire in my damn cubicle yet. And it's right under our very expensive phone switch that Victor had just paid like 10 grand or something to have put in. So Zach starts freaking out, and I guess it's about a minute in before I'm like, this might be a bad situation. And so I start freaking out. And people are like, hey, what's the commotion? Why is there smoke in the building? Who's smoking? You can't smoke in here. So everybody starts coming over one by one. Like Don comes over. He was one of our artists. And he's like, yeah, that thing's on fire, all right. Victor, the president, he runs over and he goes, oh, yeah, that's right under our phone system. That's the important part. So he goes and he gets Justin. He's like, Justin, get us a fire extinguisher. We need to get this out right now, because not only is there a fire, but it's under this expensive phone system. So Justin runs over to his area where there's a fire extinguisher. He brings it out, and nothing in it. Completely empty. And this was probably our first bonding moment at Working Designs while I was there, because collectively we all went, shit. Victor sends Justin out. He's like, go down the hall, get the fire extinguisher, break the glass, get it over here. Justin goes, does that, breaks the glass, brings the fire extinguisher over, and it was completely empty as well. But Victor, he's a man with a plan, right? So he might have this flaming box of doom. And he picks it up, he unplugs the power cord because we figure, no power will put the fire out. I don't know why we figured that, because it doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly the moment when we learned that's what you never, ever, ever want to do, because then the batteries kick in, and they burn the nicest color of blue. They don't smell too good, but it was a very pretty sight. And then Victor really started freaking out, and we're on the second floor at this time, so he just picks up this flaming box and throws it out the window. Didn't bother to open the window at all, because, there's no time, we can't be bothered with that. And goes crashing down 2 stories. Luckily no cars were down there because we had a little pathway. And everybody's just kind of like panting at the end of this. And one of the girls turns to me and she's like, we've never had a fire in here before. And it's your first day, isn't it?
I'm here with Rick. So what's it take to put together something like this? I mean, it's got to be an amazing amount of effort.
There's a lot of work involved. There's 8 of us that put on this show, and each one of us did quite a bit of work.
How many volunteers do you have that work on this?
This year I think we have about 30.
30.
We usually don't get volunteers until about the last few weeks.
Thanks a million for taking a minute here to be on video with us.
No problem.
Have a good one. I'm here with Shampoo. This is just a really cool booth. You've got pins, you've got cufflinks, you've got hair stuff, all retro video game inspired, yeah?
And earrings and bracelets and necklaces, yes.
Awesome. And what have you got here?
Also, I cut video game sprites out of recycled wood, mostly IKEA furniture. And this is a piranha plant from Super Mario 3. It's a garden stake, so you can plant it outside.
Very nice. That's very cool, very pixely.
It's very pixelated.
So tell me, do you guys have an online shop or an actual storefront? Or what's
we
the
sell
story?
on Etsy right now, and we have you can go to everybodypixelparty.com,
everybodypixelparty.com.
which will take you right to our Etsy shop. In the future, it might take you to a nicer website.
Cool. Very nice. And do you make these items?
Yeah, we make it all. The jewelry is all made with shrinky dinks. And I use shrinky dinks and an inkjet printer and a laser cutter and my oven. And then the same epoxy that's on this goes on all the jewelry too to keep it from running, the ink from running.
Very nice.
And then we glue it on all the different pieces.
Well, cool. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks
I
a lot.
appreciate
It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise. video game wizards. This is a really impressive booth. You guys have everything.
Just about. We carry everything from original Atari, Commodore 64 to 360, PS3, Wii, DSi.
Wow.
Everything in between in the middle. So
How long have you been in business?
the store's been around for 21 years.
21 years.
21 years. So
Awesome.
9712 Southeast Foster Road.
And phone number?
503-771-6440.
Cool.
Come see us.
Yeah, and so all of this stuff that you hear, if you go into the store, will you find it on the shelves in there?
This, what you see around you, is a mini store. That is exactly what we've been calling this, is Video Game Wizards 2 for the show right now. Because as you walk into our store, it's 800 square feet of retro and new age, floor to ceiling, shelves everywhere, everything you see will be here.
Wow. And are you having a good time so far at the
Excellent,
expo?
excellent. We've been participating with the Retro Gaming Expo for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Since day one, we've been their pretty much their main sponsor until this year. So
Since basically the beginning?
since the beginning, we've been right with them, and we've just had a great time. So,
Cool. Well, thanks for taking a minute to be on the camera
Earl,
with
thank
us.
you so much.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Take over the world!
Hey guys, how are you? So we thought maybe we'd start by just talking about how we got into the industry, how we started in games, and that usually takes us to how we met each other, and from there usually goes off into a lot of wild stories about 2600 days. Since Dave is the luminary here, why don't you go ahead and start, Dave. You explain how you got into the games business, and then I'll pick it up.
Well, I tore apart my first video game system, the Odyssey 1, to see how it worked. I was very much into electronics. There were no computers. There was no such thing as a microprocessor. We're talking late 60s. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was going to get involved somehow in consumer electronic products, developing gadgets. You know, I would have been happy making digital clocks at that time, but I combined that with my love of games and ended up in gaming. I actually designed a tic-tac-toe playing computer for a science fair when I was 6th grade, I think it was, and carried that forward. My college seminar was, I built a tic-tac-toe playing computer, this time out of discrete TTL logic, 72 integrated circuits and a custom display to make the tic-tac-toe display and that sort of thing. So obviously I was pretty hooked. But I had trained myself in digital electronics. The college I went to was teaching me electronic theory, that sort of thing. And I found that I didn't have the grounding that I thought I needed in other areas of electronics. Digital electronics is a lot of fun, but there's a lot of linear circuitry you have to learn, RF circuitry, there's all these different disciplines. So out of college, I took a job at National Semiconductor in the analog chip design group. We made voltage regulators and op amps and other non-digital circuits. And I wanted to get some hands-on experience in that. And after 2 years of that, I learned everything I wanted to learn. I was looking around. And on the tennis court, I ran into Al Miller, who was working at Atari at the time. He and I were actually doubles partners. And one night he said, "Read this ad that I wrote. I've been asked to write an ad for the newspaper to hire video game designers." So he gave me the ad to proofread. And I read it and I said, I can do this. And that night, I went back to National, where I had built a computer for them to do electronic testing on my computer with a word processor that I wrote. I wrote up a resume. I went in at 10 a.m. the next morning to interview with Al's boss. Went back to National, and by 2 p.m. I'd been offered a job. So I ended up at Atari, and the Atari 2600 had just hit the shelves. So this was 1977, the fall. And I was hired because they were hiring programmers to develop games for the Atari 2600. I did Outlaw, Slot Machine, Canyon Bomber. Canyon Bomber was one of my best results at that time, or products at that time. We were being asked to do home versions of Atari's successful arcade games. And they had 2 arcade games out. One was called Canyon Bomber, and the other called Depth Charge. 2 $4,000 arcade games. And I put both games into an Atari 2600 2K cartridge. So I was proud of that. Atari then started developing the Atari 400-800, and I went away from doing games and wrote part of the operating system for the 400-800. And by that time was getting disillusioned with some of the problems that were happening at Atari, and that's when I went off and founded Activision. That's about the time you got started.
Yeah, that's about the time. There's a great Canyon Bomber story, which we'll tell you. Canyon Bomber on the 2600, if you remember the game, you had all the blocks, and you would drop a bomb, and the bomb would fall on a trajectory and knock all the blocks out, and the blocks would fall with gravity and fill in the space, and you were trying to knock all the blocks out. And Dave wrote a nice gravity algorithm, and it was really cool. And then at that point in time at Atari, I never worked at Atari, but at that point in time at Atari, they wanted you to do things with the difficulty switches, where you could set difficulty switches to have like 150 different modes of play. And one of the modes of play that Dave put in was to make it that when you knock the blocks out, they don't fall. So it's a slightly different strategy. Now the blocks just stay where they are, so when it falls from a trajectory, they don't fall. And, you know, pretty straightforward, check the switch and turn the bit off for gravity. And he had done such an incredible job of making this simulation of real world at the time that one of the marketing people, you can jump in if you want to tell the story, but I've heard it so many times, a woman in marketing department came over, and Dave was saying, yeah, and it has all these different modes, and she had seen the game played 100 times where you knock the bricks out and it falls. And he said, yeah, there's a mode where you flip a switch, and now when you drop the bricks, he drops the bricks, and they don't fall. And she just stopped aghast and looked at the screen and said, how do you make them stay up like that? And it's just, she thought it was real life, that those bricks actually do fall. And
I had spent days making them fall. And in that mode, all I did is disable that part of the algorithm. It was easy to leave them up.
And she thought it was just like magic. Like, oh my God, you've defeated gravity. It's unbelievable. So anyway, while Dave was doing all that fun stuff at Atari, I was on the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. And I was in school for engineering, and I got offered a job at a little teeny 4-person company doing engineering consulting while I was still essentially in engineering. So I wasn't a quote engineer at that point. I was kind of hired to solder circuit boards. And this little group was very entrepreneurial, and we went from circuit boards to somebody had the idea to get into electronic toys. So we talked our way into a contract with Parker Brothers to build one of the first electronic toys, because we had been doing exactly what Dave said. We had been doing calculators and digital clocks and very early microprocessor-based 4-bit microprocessors at that point. And the Mattel football game came out, the one with the little segments you run, and we said, hey, that's the same electronics that we're doing this photographic timer. If we're turning on segments for a photographic timer, we can turn on segments and do something fun, so let's try to make toys. So we ended up getting a contract from Parker Brothers to do a game called Wildfire, which was a pinball machine that had 72 discrete LEDs in a matrix with beautiful graphics over the top of it that made it look like if you lit the balls up in the right order, it made it look like the balls were actually rolling. And it's a great story. I was a technician soldering boards, and the owner of the company went out and hired this genius consultant programmer. This guy was the head of programming at Lockheed Aerospace. And so paid him this truckload of money to write this algorithm for this microprocessor. And I was the lowly squirt in the office, so this guy would write thousands of lines of code on paper, hand me the sheets of paper, and I would type it in for him. So every day this guy after work would come and give me a stack of paper, and I'd type it all in. He'd come back, another stack of paper, I'd type. I never programmed, nothing, no clue about programming. And about 3 months of this, Parker Brothers is waiting to see something. We've built all the hardware, and we've never done software before, so we enter all this guy's code in, and he comes in 3 months. He goes, all right, today we're going to play pinball. So we're like, great. And we all gather around, and he flips the switch on, and we look down at the display, and there's nothing happening. And he goes, wait, I know what it is. So we run back over and make a change. We come back, we all lean over, flips the switch, there's nothing there. And this went on for a while. And it's went on for like 2 weeks, and we're late on the product with Parker Brothers. My boss is freaking out, and I'm kind of sitting in the back of the room, and I go, you know, I don't know anything about programming. I said, but I typed in everything this guy gave me, and my gut just tells me it doesn't look right. And they're like, well, nobody knows how to program. You want to try? And I said, yeah, I'll try. So I learned programming on the fly. I had never programmed, so I went in and I started changing things that I thought were wrong. We fired this guy's ass, sent him back packing the Lockheed. Turns out he had no clue what he was doing. Anybody who knows anything about programming, you don't write the entire game and then turn it on and it works. That's kind of not the way you do it. So, long story short, in about 2 months, I had the whole game playing. I had it playing in 3 kbytes, and it had to fit in 1.5 kbytes. So we showed it to Parker Brothers in 3 kbytes, and it was really fun. It was a fun game. We said, now we got to cut it down to half the size. So I had to spend another month or 2 doing that, put it out, huge success. It did many millions of units. I still have a working copy. It may be a working copy out there. It's a Texas Instruments TMS 1000 4-bit microprocessor. So that was it. I was hooked. I was hooked on programming, and I was hooked on games. So I got a call from Steve Mayer, big deal up at Atari, and he said, you're in New Jersey, right? And I said, yeah. He said, can you meet me tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the Time Warner building? And I'm like, okay. So, you know, I go in my jeans and t-shirt to the Time Warner building, and he's there, and he whisks me up to the top floor of the Time Warner building. And I go into this office that's, you know, the size of the entire building. It's like a 3,000 square foot office. And way down at the end is this giant oak desk, and sitting in it is the head of Warner, Warner's division, the guy Manny Gerard, who's the head of Warner's division, who had bought Atari. And he's sitting there, and Steve Mayer walks me in and he says, we're going to make a deal, whatever it takes. We need to get this deal done. Manny wants to meet you. So he drags me in there. I'm a kid, you know. And he drags me in there. We sit down with Manny Gerard and Steve Mayer, and they say, what's it going to take? Whatever this number is, you know, however much we've offered you, we offer you more, blah, blah, blah. God, if I can only go back in time. But, you know, whatever it takes, we're throwing it at you. And I'm looking at all the numbers. I mean, yeah, you know, well, yeah. And they, come on, what are we doing? And I just kind of looked at Manny Gerard, and they said, you know, I'd love to do it. I said, but I can't work for a company that puts out such pieces of shit. And he got really mad. I don't know what I was thinking. He got really mad. Steve Mayer stormed out of the office with me. I never saw him again. What are you gonna do? I probably should have said, $10 million on the table right now, let's go. But I didn't know any better. So I went back and told the guys that worked with me, and they weren't very happy. He said, what are you, crazy? But that's what I did. So I was finishing up Donkey Kong. I called Activision. I just called the general phone number, and I said, can I speak to the head of product development? And I got a guy on the phone, believe it or not. Can't do that today, but I did then. And I said, hi, I write Atari games. Love to work with you guys. And he goes, you don't write Atari games. He said, do you ever work for Atari? I said, no. He said, do you ever work for Activision? I said, no. He goes, then you don't write Atari games. I said, no, believe me, I do. I'm finishing Donkey Kong for Coleco. And he said, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. So he came out on the plane and met me, and then I went back and met Dave, and we've been working together ever since. And next year it'll be 30 years that Dave and I worked together. Somebody last night at dinner called us the Ben and Jerry of video games. I don't know for the Ben and Jerry video games, but I met Dave, I joined Xbox, and we worked together.